Hi, this is Jason Toll. The following short video clip was taken from a conversation with Mark Israel. Mark is the CEO of Universal Engineering Sciences. We discussed the three greatest challenges facing long-term owners of undeveloped land. In this clip, we discussed the determination, evaluation, and permitting of wetlands. To see the entire conversation, please click the link below in the description. Thank you.
Let's start off with wetlands. Let's say that a property owner, let's call it a historic property owner, someone that's owned their property for a generation. And maybe it's ag land, maybe it's just undeveloped land. And there are wetlands there. And sometimes these owners don't know exactly how to manage this. How do you determine how much water is on the site, and how do you determine how much of this area is net usable?
So whenever you're developing a piece of property, one of the first things you want to know is whether you have any wetlands there. And so you need to get a wetland assessment. And so you have a trained environmental professional who can go out, can look at historical photographs and aerial photographs, and then also walks the site, and they will be able to estimate if there's any wetland lines present, and then where the wetland line is. They'll be able to draw it on a map. They do that by looking at vegetation, certain types of vegetation that grow in wetlands and are considered wetland vegetation, and there's certain kinds that aren't. Then they'll look at the topography and the soil conditions, and if there's any surficial water. Based on those things, they'll establish an estimated line and show you where your wetlands on the site are located.
Okay, so that's interesting. You mentioned an estimated line. There is a process of actually permitting this. There's jurisdictional requirements. How do you all manage this process and on behalf of the property owner?
So once you have your estimate, then you can sit down and decide what you want to do with the property. If you want to develop it, how you want to develop it, and if you want to impact the wetlands. And depending on what you have, you may or may not be impacting the wetlands. Once you make that decision, then you need to go and get a permit. And there's local permits, there's state permits, and sometimes there's federal permits that are required. And depending on what type of impact, if any, that you have, then there's different mitigation steps that you need to take. So you get your assessment, figure out where you are, then you get your permit so that you're allowed to do what you do, and then you have your mitigation, which is how you deal with what you've done.
Okay, so you mentioned mitigation. As I understand it, there are two types. There's on-site mitigation and there's mitigation through a mitigation bank. Is that correct?
Correct. So if you're going to impact a wetland, let's say you have a building you want to build and just a corner of it goes in the wetlands, then you have to do some mitigation. Now, there's minor mitigation and minor impacts and then greater impacts. And depending on how much you impact, it decides how much mitigation you have to do. And it also boils down to the quality of the wetlands. Some are very low-grade wetlands that have been destroyed by road building and development around them. Others are more pristine. The more pristine you are, the more cost you're going to have. So you can create a new wetland on site, which can be a little bit tricky, requires a little bit of effort, or you can purchase wetlands in what's called a wetland bank, where someone has taken land, set it aside just for that purpose.